Hey guys, it's Sports Dude 13 here, and finally, it is here, my 2021 March Madness predictions. Ever since last year, the tournament was canceled, and now it is finally here. And now, let's get started. Starting off with the first four games. Norfolk State and Appalachian State. I think Norfolk State's going to get that one. Wichita State and Drake. I think Drake's going to win that. Mount St. Mary's and Texas Southern. I got Texas Southern winning that. And Michigan State and UCLA. I got Michigan State. So now let's start off with the West region. Gonzaga versus Norfolk State or Appalachian State, which I think Norfolk State would win. Obviously, I don't think there's going to be another 16 seed upsetting a 1 seed. Obviously, because Gonzaga has been pretty dominant this season. And they're basically one of the true teams that I think is going to win the national championship. Oklahoma and Missouri. I think Oklahoma wins that. Creighton and UC Santa Barbara. Here's my first upset. I think UC Santa Barbara is going to upset Creighton. Virginia or Ohio. Obviously Virginia. And then USC versus Wichita State or Drake, which I think Drake would win that one. And I actually think USC is going to win that one. And then Kansas versus Eastern Washington. Obviously Kansas. And then Oregon versus VCU. I got Oregon winning. And then Iowa versus Grand Canyon. I have Iowa winning. And then now down to the East region. Michigan versus Mount St. Mary's or Texas Southern, which I think Texas Southern would win that. I think Michigan would win. And then LSU and St. Bonaventure. Obviously, I think LSU wins that. Colorado against Georgetown. I got Colorado winning. And then Florida State and UNC Greensboro. Obviously, Florida State. And then BYU against Michigan State or UCLA, which I think Michigan State would win that. And I think Michigan State is going to upset BYU. And then Texas versus Abilene Christian. I think Texas is going to win that one. And then UConn against Maryland. I got UConn. And then Alabama against Iona. Alabama. Now we go to the other side. Baylor versus Hartford. Obviously Baylor. North Carolina versus Wisconsin. I actually got North Carolina winning. And then Winthrop and Villanova. I have my next upset here. I think Winthrop is going to upset Villanova because Villanova has just lost their best player basically somewhere around the end of the season. And I think they're going to struggle against Winthrop. And then I think Purdue is going to beat North Texas. Then Texas Tech versus Utah State. I got Texas Tech. And then Arkansas against Colgate. I got Arkansas winning that. And then Florida versus Virginia Tech. Obviously, I think Florida wins. And then Ohio State versus Oral Roberts. I think Ohio State wins. And now on to the Midwest region. This one's a pretty easy one. Illinois will beat Drexel. And then Loyola Chicago versus Georgia Tech. Of course, I'm going to go with Loyola Chicago. I believe they're going to make some kind of a run in this tournament. And then Tennessee versus Oregon State. Obviously, I'm picking Tennessee. Don't count them out. Obviously, Miss McCormick doesn't want to count out her Vols, so, yep. And then Oklahoma State versus Liberty. I think Oklahoma State wins that. And then San Diego State versus Syracuse. As much as I want to pick Syracuse just because they've always been a tournament team, just because they made some huge runs in the tournament in previous years, but I think San Diego State is going to move on. And then West Virginia versus Morehead State. I got West Virginia. And then Clemson versus Rutgers. I got Rutgers. And then Houston, I think, would beat Cleveland State. Now, on to the second round. Gonzaga versus Oklahoma. Obviously, Gonzaga. And then UC Santa Barbara versus Virginia. I think Virginia wins. And then USC versus Kansas. Obviously, Kansas. And then Oregon versus Iowa. Obviously, Iowa. Michigan versus LSU. I got Michigan. Colorado versus Florida State. Florida State. Michigan State versus Texas. I got an upset. I think Michigan State is going to upset Texas just because they've made some huge runs sometimes as a low seed in previous tournaments. And I think they can make it back to the Sweet 16. And then UConn versus Alabama. I think UConn is going to upset Alabama in the second round. And then Baylor versus North Carolina. Baylor, I think. We'll move on. And then Winthrop and Purdue. Obviously Purdue. And then Texas Tech and Arkansas. I got Arkansas. And then Florida versus Ohio State. I got Ohio State. And then Illinois versus Loyola Chicago. This is going to be a pretty good second round matchup. As much as I want to pick Loyola Chicago just because they made that run to the Final Four a few years ago. But Illinois is just more talented with Ayo Dosunmu. So I think Illinois is going to go to the Sweet 16. And then Tennessee versus Oklahoma State. I'm putting Tennessee in the Sweet 16. And hopefully Miss McCormick will be happy that I put her Vols in there to be sweet. And then San Diego State and West Virginia. I got West Virginia. And then Rutgers versus Houston. I got Houston. Now we're on to the Sweet 16. Gonzaga versus Virginia. I got Gonzaga. And then Kansas versus Illinois. As much as I want to pick Kansas for basically my friend Sam Taylor, but I was just more talented with Luka Garza. And then Michigan versus Florida State. I think Florida State is going to take out Michigan. And then Michigan State versus UConn. I got Michigan State. Baylor versus Purdue in the South region. I got Baylor moving on. And then Arkansas versus Ohio State. I got Ohio State moving on. And then Illinois versus Tennessee. As much as I want to pick Tennessee to move on to the Elite Eight, obviously Illinois is just too talented. So sorry, miss. And then West Virginia versus Houston. I got West Virginia beating Houston. Now we're on to the Elite Eight. Gonzaga versus Iowa. This is going to be a pretty good Elite Eight matchup, as long if it happens. But I think Gonzaga is going to go to the Final Four. And then Florida State versus Michigan State. As much as I want to put Michigan State in the Final Four, I'm putting Florida State in. And then Baylor versus Ohio State. Baylor. And then Illinois versus West Virginia. I have Illinois going to the Final Four. And then Gonzaga versus Florida State in the Final Four. I have Gonzaga moving on to the national championship. And then on the other side, Baylor and Illinois. I think Illinois wins that. And then Gonzaga versus Illinois in the national championship. This is going to be a pretty good national championship. Obviously, with Jalen Suggs versus Ayo Dosunmu. But in the end, I think the national champions of 2021 will be Gonzaga. As I think they're going to finish with a perfect season. Maybe the first undefeated champion in March Madness basically in a long time. And I think the final score will be 77-74. So that is my 2021 March Madness predictions. Let me know who you think is going to win the national championship. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to join the Sports Dude Nation. And I will see you guys later.